June 1st, 1922, Volume 14, Jesus Before Pilate. What the Truth Is. Finding myself in my usual state, I was following the hours of the passion of my sweet Jesus, especially when he was presented to Pilate, who asked him what his kingdom was. And my always lovable Jesus told me, "My daughter, that was the first time in my terrestrial life that I dealt with a Gentile authority, who asked me what my kingdom was. And I answered him that my kingdom is not of this world, for if it were of this world, thousands of legions of angels would defend me. But with this, I opened my kingdom to the Gentiles, and communicated my celestial doctrines to them, so much so that Pilate asked me, 'How is this? You are king?' And immediately I answered him, 'I am king, and I have come into the world to teach the truth.' With this I wanted to make my way into his mind, in order to make myself known, so much so that, touched, he asked me, 'What is the truth?' But he did not wait for my answer. I did not have the good of making myself understood. I would have said to him, 'I am the truth. Everything is truth in me. Truth is my patience in the midst of so many insults. Truth is my sweet gaze among so many derisions, slanders, contempts. Truths are my gentle and attractive manners in the midst of so many enemies who hate me while I love them, and who want to give me death, while I want to embrace them and give them life. Truths are my words, full of dignity and of celestial wisdom. Everything is truth in me. The truth is more than majestic sun, which, no matter how much they try to trample on it, rises more beautiful and bright, to the point of shaming its very enemies and of knocking them down at its feet. Pilate asked me with sincerity of heart, and I was ready to answer. Herod, instead, asked me with malice and curiosity, and I did not answer. Therefore, to those who want to know holy things with sincerity, I reveal myself more than they expect. But with those who want to know them with malice and curiosity, I hide myself. And while they want to make fun of me, I confuse them and make fun of them. However, since my person carried the truth with itself, it performed its office also in front of Herod. My silence at the stormy questions of Herod, my humble gaze, the air of my person, all full of sweetness, of dignity, and of nobility, were all truths and operating truths. June 1st, 1924, Volume 16, The Great Good Which More Than Celestial Do, the memory of all that Jesus said and suffered in his life brings to the soul, as she makes it her own. This morning I found myself outside of myself, and I saw my last late confessor, surrounded by many people who were all attentive, and as though enraptured in listening to him. And he talked, and was so inflamed as to inflame others. I drew near to listen to what he was saying, and to my surprise I heard that he was saying all that blessed Jesus had told me. His finesses of love, the many condescensions of Jesus toward me. And when he spoke about the stratagems of love of Jesus toward me, he radiated light, to the extent of remaining transfused within that light, and not only himself, but also those who were listening to him. I remained surprised, and I said to myself, the confessor did not do it only in life, telling the things of my soul to others, but he is doing it also after his death in the other life. And I waited for him to finish speaking in order to approach him and tell him about some of my difficulties. But he would not finish. and I found myself inside myself. Then, according to my usual way, I followed my beloved Jesus in his passion, satisfying him, repairing him, and making his pains my own. And Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, how much great good the memory of me and of all that I did, suffered, and said in my life procures for the soul. By compassionating me and making my intentions her own, and by remembering one by one my pains, my works, my words, she calls them into herself and places them in nice order within her soul, in such a way as to come to take the fruits of all I did, suffered, and said. This produces a sort of divine humidity within the soul, in which the sun of my grace delights in rising and in forming a celestial dew by virtue of that humidity. And this dew does not only embellish the soul in a marvelous way, but it has the virtue of mitigating the rays of the burning sun of my divine justice, when, finding souls burned up by the fire of sin, it is about to strike them, burn them, and wither them more and more. By mitigating its rays, this divine dew uses them to form a beneficial dew, in order to prevent them from striking the creatures, and it becomes vital humidity, so as not to let them wither. Oh, how this symbolizes nature, when after a day of burning sun, the plants are about to wither, and a humid night is enough, because rising again upon that humidity, the sun forms its dew. And instead of making them die, its heat serves to fecundate them and to complete the maturation of their fruits. This happens more surprisingly in the supernatural order. The memory is the beginning of every good. The memory forms many sips for the soul in order to give her life. When good, when things are forgotten, they lose their vital virtue for the soul. They lose their attractiveness, gratitude, correspondence, esteem, love, value. And this memory does not only produce the origin of every good in life, but also after death it produces the origin of glory. Have you not heard your late confessor, how he delighted in speaking about the graces I have given you? This is because during his life he cared about hearing them, he remembered them, and his interior remained filled with them as to overflow outside. And now how much good did this not procure for him in the other life? It is for him like a fount of good, which overflows for the good of others. Therefore, the more the soul remembers all that belongs to me, my graces, the lessons I have given her, the more the fount of my goods grows within her, to the point that, unable to contain them, they overflow for the good of others. June 1st, 1927, Volume 22. How Jesus knows how to make all miracles except for that of separating from his own will. Sorrow because of the death of Father de Francia. The good of one who puts the truths he has known into practice. Jesus allows her to see that blessed soul and speaks to her about him. The privations of my sweet Jesus are becoming longer. I feel I cannot go on any more. Oh, if it were conceded to me to take flight toward my celestial fatherland, in which there are no more separations from Jesus, how happy I would be to get out of the hard and dark prison of my body. Jesus, Jesus, how can you not want to have pity on me, on this poor prisoner? How can it be? You left me without even coming to visit me often in the dark prison I find myself in. Oh, Jesus, without you, how much more painful, more gloomy. more terrible my imprisonment becomes in which you put me, telling me that I should remain in it for love of you and to do your will, but that you would not leave me alone. You would keep me company. And now everything is over. I do not have your smile that cheers me. I do not have your word that breaks my long silence, nor your company that interrupts my loneliness. I am alone, imprisoned and bound by you in this prison. And then as the fulfillment you have left me. Jesus, Jesus, I did not expect this from you. But while I was pouring out my intense sorrow, he came out from within my interior, and embracing me in order to sustain me, for I had no more strength, he told me, "My daughter, courage, I do not leave you. On the contrary, you must know that your Jesus knows how to make and can make all miracles, except for the miracle of separating from my own will. If my divine will is in you, how can I leave you? And if I did so, I would be Jesus without life. Rather, it is the endlessness of my Fiat that hides me. And while you feel its life, you do not see your Jesus who is inside of it." Then I was feeling very afflicted, not only because of the privations of my sweet Jesus, but also because I had received the unexpected news of the death of Reverend Father de Francia. He was the only one left to me to whom I could open my poor soul. How well he could understand me. It was to a saint that I would entrust myself, who had very much comprehended all the value of what Jesus had told me about the divine will. He had so much interest in it that, with insistence, he had taken all the writings with himself in order to publish them. So I was thinking to myself, after Jesus allowed that he would take the writings with himself, to my great sacrifice because I did not want it, and only because he was a saint I had to surrender. And now Jesus has taken him to heaven. I felt myself being tortured because of the pain. But Fiat, 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 everything ends down here. I poured out in tears, commending to Jesus that blessed soul who had so much suffered and worked for him. And while I was doing this, my sweet Jesus moved in my interior and told me, "My daughter, courage, you must know that everything which that soul so dear to me has done, all the knowledges he has known about my will, have caused him to enclose as much light within his soul. So each additional knowledge is a greater light that he possesses, and each knowledge places a distinct light in the soul, one more beautiful than the other, together with the seed of the distinct happiness that each light contains. In fact, in anything good that the soul can know, with her will of putting it into practice within herself, she remains in possession of the good she knows. But if she does not have the will to put the knowledges she acquires into practice, it happens as when someone touches a flower or washes himself once with very fresh water. In that act, he will feel the fragrance of the flower, the refreshment of the fresh water, but since he does not possess the flower or the fount of fresh water, little by little the fragrance will vanish, as well as the good of the freshness of that water, and he will find himself empty of that fragrance, and without the freshness he had enjoyed. Such are the knowledges when one has the good of knowing them but does not put them into practice. Now that soul had all the will to practice them, so much so that, in seeing the great good he felt, he wanted to make them known to others by publishing them. So as long as he remained on earth, his body, more than walled up that light. But as soon as his soul went out of the prison of his body, he found himself invested with the light he possessed. And as the many seeds of happiness he possessed developed, which are the effects of the knowledges about my divine will, he began to feel the beginning of the life of true beatitudes. And diving into the eternal light of his Creator, he found himself in the celestial fatherland, in which he will continue his mission about my will, assisting everything himself from heaven. If you knew the great difference in glory, in beauty, in happiness that exists between one who, upon dying, brings light from the earth, together with the seeds of many happinesses, and one who only receives it from his Creator, there is such distance as to surpass the distance between heaven and earth. Oh, if mortals knew the great good they acquire by knowing a true good, a truth, and by making it their own blood, in order to absorb it in their own lives, they would compete among themselves. They would forget about everything in order to know one truth, and would lay down their lives to put it into practice. While Jesus was saying this, I saw the blessed soul of Father before me, near my bed, invested with light, suspended from the earth, fixing on me, but without telling me one word. I too felt mute before him, and Jesus added, "Look at him, how transformed he is. My will is light, and has transformed that soul into light. It is beautiful, and has given him all the tints of perfect beauty. It is holy, and he has been sanctified. My will possesses all sciences, and his soul has been invested by divine science. There is nothing that my will has not given to him. Oh, if all understood what divine will means, they would put everything aside. They would care about doing nothing else, and their whole commitment would be to do my will alone." After this I was thinking to myself, but why did blessed Jesus not concur in making a miracle for Father de Francia? And Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, in redemption the Queen of Heaven did not make any miracle, because her conditions did not permit that she would give life to the dead or health to the sick. In fact, since her will was that of God himself, whatever her God wanted and did, she wanted and did as well. Nor did she possess another will to ask God for miracles and healings, because she never gave life to her human will. And in order to ask for miracles from this divine will, she should have used her own, which she did not want to do, because it would have meant descending into the human order. But the sovereign queen never wanted to take one step outside of the divine order, and one who is in it must want and do what his Creator does. More so since, with the life and light of this divine will, she could see that whatever her Creator wanted and did was the best, the most perfect, the holiest, also for creatures. So how could she descend from the height of the divine order? This is why she only made the great miracle that enclosed all miracles, redemption, wanted by the same will by which she was animated, that brought universal good, and to whoever wants it. While in life she made no visible miracle, either of healings or of raising the dead, the great celestial Mother made, and does make, miracles at each moment, at every hour and every day, because as souls dispose themselves and repent, giving herself the disposition for repentance, she bilocates her Jesus, the fruit of her womb, and gives him as whole to each one, as confirmation of her great miracle that God wanted this celestial creature to make. The miracles that God himself wants to be made, without mixing of human will, are perennial miracles, because they start from the divine font that is never exhausted, and it is enough to want them in order to receive them. Now, your conditions hold hands with those of the incomparable Queen of Heaven. Having to form the kingdom of the supreme Fiat, you must want nothing but what my divine will wants and does, and your will must have no life, even if it seems to you that you might be doing some good to creatures. And just as my mamma did not want to make any other miracle but the one of giving her Jesus to creatures, the same for you. The miracle that the divine will wants you to make is that of giving my will to creatures, and of making it known in order to let it reign. With this miracle you will do more than anything. You will place the salvation, the sanctity, the nobility of creatures in safety, and will also banish their corporal maladies, caused by the fact that my divine will does not reign. Not only this, but you will place a divine will in safety in the midst of creatures, and will give back to it all the glory and the honor that human ingratitude has taken away from it. This is why I did not allow that you would make it the miracle of healing him, but you made for him the great miracle of letting him know my will, and he left the earth with the possession of it. And now he enjoys in the sea of the light of the divine will, and this is more than anything. End of June 1st. Fiat,